Hi, welcome back to Miss Nifty C's YouTube channel. I am Miss Nifty C, and I come to you with apologies held out before me because once again, it has been way too long since I posted a video. But you're here and I'm here, and it's time to talk about books because that is all that I want to talk about pretty much all of the time. So here I am, we're back. We're going to talk books. One-sided conversation, in your face, let's go. I'm going to tell you today about some of the books that I finished this past week, books that I'm currently reading, and also, excitedly, I have a little haul. My very first book haul ever on YouTube. I feel so cool. I've never been able to do a book haul before because I don't have enough money to buy more than one book at a time, usually. But there's a secondhand bookstore in my city that had a huge sale this past weekend, and I picked up a few things. So we're going to talk about those. Let's jump right into it because knowing me, I will ramble on for way too long, and I don't want to do that. So the books that I finished last week. Let's start with that. The first book that I finished last week was Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales. This is the third and final book in the Emily Wilde series. And I am so proud of myself because I'm not really a series gal, if you know what I mean. I mean, I read series, but I don't ever finish them. I mean, I do sometimes. Obviously, I finished this one, but like so rarely. I'm really bad about finishing series. So I finished this one and I liked it. Sometimes I'll finish the series and I'll be like, well, that wasn't worth it. That, the books progressively get worse, or it just doesn't feel worth it. Like, you put forth all this time to read 3, 4, 5 books, and then you're just like, I don't know. But this was a good series. I liked this one. It was cute. This is the story of Emily Wilde. She is a professor of dryadology, which is like fairy, at Cambridge. So it's a real world inspired, slightly historic setting, which is cute. And so she's there. She goes on adventures. The first book, she's researching for a project with a colleague named Wendell. I think it's pretty widely known because the series is finished now that they fall in love. So it's kind of like a fantasy romance, but it's not spicy, which I enjoy. And it's mostly just adventure and very cute. Okay, second book that I read this week and I finished is The Beginning of Spring. This is by Penelope Fitzgerald. This was a Booker Prize winner in 1988 or 1981. I don't know, sometime in the 1980s. And I don't know how I feel about this book. I finished it about 3 days ago, and I'm still kind of confused about my feelings towards this book. It was good, but I don't think it was for me, But it wasn't, I didn't dislike it so much that I would like get rid of it or anything. I'm still going to keep it. I think I need to read it again. That might be the problem, is I need to read it again. Anyway, this book is about Frank Reed. He is an Englishman who was born in Moscow to English parents, and now he's an adult, and he owns and runs a printing company in Moscow. And at the beginning of the book, he comes home from work one day, and his wife has left with their 3 kids, and he doesn't really know why. She doesn't explain why. None of the servants can tell him what happened. And the story is him navigating that kind of bewildering situation, how he goes about his work, how he manages his household, how he interacts with friends and colleagues, and it's very interesting. The prose and the writing style itself, I quite liked. It was very good. But the plot, I guess that can sum it up. The plot? There is a plot, but it's not plot heavy at all. But also, it feels like it's supposed to be character driven, but the characters just don't have enough oomph to them. The main character himself, Frank Reed, reads very flat. Like his personality is very muted, and I just wanted more. And this is a type of book that you're kind of left with more questions at the end than you had at the beginning, and sometimes that can be really good. That's a very unique reading experience, but it didn't land for me with this one. So yeah, I think I am going to pick this up and read it a second time, much farther in the future, I'm sure, not anytime soon, but I think it would benefit from just like a second a second reading. So that's the beginning of spring. I would pick this up if you're interested in any sort of Russian history. So this takes place right before the Russian Revolution in the 1900s. So as you're reading it, you're very aware of like that tension in the country and in the city and in the people, but it's not escalated yet. It hasn't come to a head, but you know that it's coming, and so you're just kind of, it's a little bit itchy, you know? So that's a very interesting, and I did feel like I had been picked up and plopped down in the middle of Moscow in March in 1909. It's bizarre that somebody who is a contemporary writer could be so, what appears to be historically accurate. So yeah, that was the beginning of spring. Those are the two books that I read this past week. I'm currently reading two other books. The first is an audiobook. I'm really liking it so far. It's called The Missing Thread, A Woman's Guide, or no, what's the subtitle? Something about women in ancient history. It's pretty much all of the women, not all of them, there was millions of them, but many of the women who lived in ancient times, who are not talked about, who are forgotten, are not included in any sort of history lesson, and also just what their lives were like. And it's very interesting. I'm very compelled by and inspired by stories of ancient women. And I made a lot of bookmarks in this one because I want to either go back and read more in-depth biographies of these women if I can find them, or I'm inspired to retell their stories. I'm currently writing a book, and it is set in ancient Greece, and I don't want to talk too much about it because I'm embarrassed and I'm not a real author or anything, but it just inspires me, I guess. So I've been really loving reading that one. I'm almost done with it. I have about 2 hours left, so I plan to finish it up today. And then the other book that I'm reading currently is War and Peace by our good man Leo Tolstoy. I've had this book on my shelves forever. I've been wanting to read it forever, and because it's big and it's a Leo, I just didn't pick it up for a long time. But this spring was the time, and I can tell you that I am loving it. I'm not in love with it completely yet, but that's okay. I kind of expected that. When I read Anna Karenina maybe like 3 years ago, I absolutely loved that book. I adore that book, but I didn't fall in love with it until about 60% of the way through. So I'm kind of expecting that slow burn here with this book as well. But the characters in this, some of the passages that I've read in this so far, just like moments, slices of time that he's capturing, were really, I found so beautiful. And I can't wait to find more of those gems as I continue to read this book. I started it last month, and I'm about a third of the way through, so that tracks. I figured it would take me about 3 months to read this one, but I'm really liking that one so far. And now we will get to the book haul. I can't believe I have a book haul. Guys, I have a book haul. Anyway, the book sale was really great. Me and my sister made a date of it yesterday. We went to a market. She bought some plants for her garden. We got iced beverages. I had never had an iced matcha before. I'd had hot ones. They weren't my jam. I didn't really like it, so I was like, matcha. But she picked out the drinks, and she's like, I got you an iced strawberry matcha. And I was like, okay, cool. It was delicious. My friends, it was delicious. It has changed my life. I understand why everybody wants to drink strawberry matchas. So good. Perfect spring drink, really. Anyway, so we had iced beverages, she had plants, and then we went to the book sale, and they had all of these tables out in the parking lot filled with books, and all of those books were 25 cents each. It was so good, and the weather was really nice. Perfect weather. It was a little too hot in the sun, but it's okay. Otherwise, it was perfect. My battery is so low. We got to go through this really fast. I don't think I have enough time. You know what? I'm taking a break. I'm going to come back because I'm going to want to talk. I'm going to go on. I'm going to wax poetic about these books. So I'm going to take a break, plug you in, and I'll be right back. All right, and we're back with a slight wardrobe change. Sorry, I got hot. I was doing chores, running around. Anyway, yes, battery is slightly more charged. We're going to go on to the books that I picked up at the used bookstore. Let me just organize them. here in order of how I found them. I don't know why this is important to me, but it makes sense in my head. First book is not from the secondhand bookstore. It actually came in the mail, and that is Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. I read this book last month. I got it from my library, and I really liked it. It is, again, part of a series, but this series, each of the books in them are a separate standalone story. They just all occur in the same place with the same kind of background. And this is the Regency Fairy Tales series, which is kind of like, imagine Pride and Prejudice, or maybe Bridgerton without the spice, with fairies and magic. So it's cute, it's fluffy, it's a good time, it's very sweet, it is a romance, but like I said, not spicy, so if you don't want to get into that, it's good. I liked it, and I was like, I can imagine seeing this on my shelf with like all the other ones. I would probably want to read more of these, just like whenever I need to pick up something that is not going to break my brain, but make me feel good. And it's a good one to recommend to others. You know, when other people come to my library and look at my bookshelves, a lot of times they'll ask me, oh, have you read this one? Can you recommend this one? And it's always good to have a ready copy to go saying like, yeah, you'd like this. And this is pretty universally good for everybody. I mean, unless you're like, I don't know, a macho dude that doesn't like to read romance novels, maybe. Anyway, so I got that one. I bought it used on Pango Books for like $3 or something, which was a steal. And it's a really nice copy, and it's very cute. I like the cover. Look at that. Scissors and like a moon. And the characters in that one are really sweet. Yeah, I'm just so happy that I got to buy a bunch of books all at once. I don't know. It gave me a lot of joy. So anyway, the first book that I picked up, we walked to the bookstore, and they had their selection for the sale out in the, set up on tables in the parking lot. The first table that I came to, one of the first books that caught my eye was actually a collection of books. It was a bunch of Louis L'Amour novels, and it smells, oh my goodness, maybe you don't like the smell of old stuff, but this book smells like my grandparents' basement. And speaking of my grandparents, when I was very small, less than 5 years old, my grandparents were my babysitters. My parents both had to work multiple jobs, and my grandparents were retired, and they watched me all day long, and I spent a lot of my early childhood in their house. And my papa was always reading. He was a big reader up until he kind of lost dementia, got dementia, lost his memories, and couldn't keep his, a plot in his head for long. He still would read the same book, like the first 50 pages over and over again. He was just a big reader. But I always remember him reading a copy, just a paperback of a Louis L'Amour novel, and I've never read one before. I haven't read very many Westerns in general, and so this is The Man from Skibbereen. What a fun title, The Man from Skibbereen. And look at that illustration. Classic. I love that. Mr. Louis L'Amour himself. What a stud. So I'm looking forward to reading this and just being filled with nostalgia and love for my papa, who is one of the greatest men, I believe, who ever lived. And that is my opinion. So that was the first one that I picked up for 25 cents. And if I read this and I absolutely love it, I will go back to Page 42 bookstore and pick up all the other copies that were, not all of them, there was many of them, but pick up quite a few more copies, because they kind of looked like they had all been donated together, like in a group, and I want the family to stay together, So that was the first book. The second book that I picked up, and this one comes with a little bit of a preamble beforehand, because I have to explain myself and why I picked this up. I'm not much of a romance reader. In general, like until maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I never read romance. I didn't like it. I really don't like spicy stuff. Asexual baddie over here, if that's just me. And I don't usually rate romance highly when I do read them. I still do read them. I believe that any genre can be appreciated and loved, and a good book can come from anywhere across the spectrum of genres. So I read across all genres, bar none. But I don't usually pick up a romance. It's not my go-to. That being said, when I saw this next book, I could not resist because I laughed so hard for like, I'm not a big in public, I don't display emotions. I don't emote often in public, crying, laughing, anything. But I laughed out loud for a while looking through this book. And this is Llama Lady, which is by Verily Wiggins. Oh my gosh. I can't even. I just need to know. Let me just say, this is a romance novel set on a llama farm. Okay? I need to know, Verily, that is truly your name, when you sat down and you were like, my fans, my readers love my work so much, they need more romance novels from me. I have run out of all of the different settings that I could choose to write a story about two people in love. What could I possibly do with myself? And you thought to yourself, I have it. This will solve my problem. I will set this sweeping romantic tale on a llama farm. I just can't wait to read this. It is so ridiculous. So ridiculous. I can't wait to hate this and have a good time. So that was the second book that I found for 25 cents. I tell you, the amount of joy that I got just finding that was worth the 25 cents right there. The third book that I picked up at the sale was this beautiful little thing. This is called Wait for the Wagons. And I don't know when this was published, and I don't think I'm gonna find it. It will take me forever. But I think this is a children's novel because it has really cute doodles and illustrations in there. And I have a deep love for illustrations. Before I lost my vision and got very sick, I went to art school to be an illustrator, and it's something that I hold very dear. And I do collect vintage books as well. I find them really fascinating because these don't exist in the digital world. These do not have ISBNs. Usually when you research them, sometimes you can find an excerpt or maybe a passing reference, but usually they just live in obscurity. These were printed a long time ago. They didn't stick around. They didn't become classics, and they are slowly disappearing. And so when I find one, I just love to pick them up and have them. Look at that little guy in there. Wait for the Wagons. And I'm excited because I can actually physically read this one without too much trouble because the print is not faded. It's not faded. A lot of times these are really faded and I can't make it out with my eyesight. And there's enough, like, the margins are good. There's enough white space on the page that I won't struggle too much with this one. And so I'm really happy that I found this. I hope it's good. Even if it's not, I'm still going to have a good time. And the last book, I didn't get this one for a quarter or 25 cents. This one was $7, but that's because it's fairly new release and it is in excellent condition, and that is The Covenant of Water by Abraham Verghese, I think is how you say that. And this is a historical fiction novel. It's ginormous. It's quite big. I mean, it's over 625 pages long, so it's a chunk, or it's heavy too because it's a hardcover. But I've heard really good things about this. And a while ago, my mom asked me, "Oh, have you read The Covenant of Water? I'm thinking of picking it up." And I was like, "No, I haven't yet." And my mom needs a lot of, not encouragement, but like, she just likes it if somebody she knows has read the book first, so she can kind of get a feel for it. So I'm gonna read this one, and if it's good, I'll be able to recommend it to her. And also, I just want to read a good book. I heard that the prose and the writing style in this one is quite good, so I'm excited about that. Another big book to dive into. And that's the extent of my book haul for the week. I had a really good reading week, and I hope that I can continue to do these little weekly updates. Updates is not the right word. Updates seems like too professional and business-like of a word. I'm not really updating anyone. I'm just talking at you about the things that I'm reading and books in my life. So thank you for, hi birds, thank you for joining me. Birdie's gonna start screaming here soon, so I've gotta run, but I love you. See you soon. Bye.